Well, the short answer to that is that you want to make sure to read and you watch a lot of English content. Okay, so you're probably thinking that answer you have heard so many times and it's like, it's nothing new. But in this video, I want to talk to you about vocabulary. It's one of the biggest problems when learning a language, but before you decide to learn new words, I actually want to talk to you about the two types of vocabulary. One is active vocab and another one is passive vocab. So, active vocabulary are actually words that you use in your day-to-day English. Whenever you speak English with other people or with yourself, those are the words that you always use over and over again to speak. Those are active vocabulary. So passive vocabulary are words that you understand whenever you read or you hear it from a piece of content, be it movies, podcasts, or books, but you can't actually use these words by yourself correctly yet. So a lot of people who are stuck in the intermediate plateau actually experience this problem a lot. So you understand almost everything from spoken English, whether it is from natives or from people like me, but when it comes to speaking, they just blank out. They just cannot think of the words that they need to use to convey their thoughts, even though when it's being said to them, they understand it. So yes, I talk to a lot of my subscribers, and that is a common problem that people experience in the intermediate level. So whenever people encounter this problem, the first thing that comes to mind is, okay, I have to learn more and more words. But before you do that, I want you to make the distinction between the passive vocabulary or the active vocabulary. So your vocabulary, let's think of kind of like a layered onion chart right here. So the active vocabulary, words that you actually use in your day-to-day, is more often than not smaller than the amount of passive vocabulary, which is a vocabulary that you understand but you cannot use by yourself. So people increase their passive vocabulary by reading a lot, by watching a lot, by learning new words that they may not always need, and they write it down in their notebooks or in their notes app or whatever. So increasing passive vocabulary is a good strategy if your goal of learning English is to simply understand. So if your English goal is to simply, you want to watch English movies without subtitles, or maybe you want to be able to read English books without translation, then this is a good strategy. Improving your passive vocabulary is a good strategy. However, if your goal is to actually speak in English, there comes a time where you need to stop learning new words to add to your passive vocabulary and focus on actually improving your active vocabulary. That means you want to pause on collecting new words and learning new words and memorizing new words and actually using the words and phrases that you've already heard before in your spoken English. So how do you actually do this? Some of the tips that I'm going to give you, they may not sound new. You may have heard this before, but it's very, very helpful and powerful if you actually do it the right way or if you actually put it to practice. So the easiest thing to do that you can start doing right after you watch this video is to imagine yourself using these words in your head and then out loud. Let's say you just learned the phrase take for granted. And then you understand the meaning, and you've seen this phrase being used by native speakers over and over again in many different movies or books or whatever. You see it a lot. What you want to do is to truly understand it and imagine yourself being in a situation where you can use this phrase. You can imagine that you are in a fight with your friends or with your boyfriend or girlfriend, and then you can try to say it, and then you try to make your own sentence to it. I feel like you take me for granted. I don't like that you take me for granted. I feel that you take me for granted. In Bahasa Indonesia would be, gue gak suka disepelein. Gue ngerasa boyfriend gue atau girlfriend gue itu gak nge-appreciate gue lagi. Gue tuh kayaknya di take for granted. That's what it means. And then you want to imagine yourself in this situation. So one step above that is to actually use this phrase with different grammar form. So to take for granted is the infinitive, and then you can say it in the past simple. Oh, I broke up with him because he took me for granted. Or I think I am being taken for granted. So you want to try to practice using this phrase in different grammar forms. So yes, that is one step to making your passive vocabulary become active. 2, if writing is more your thing, write down your dialogues. So one thing is to imagine yourself saying these phrases to yourself or out loud, but another thing is to actually write it down, because then that is another step to actually imprinting these phrases in your memory. So you can write a blog or a diary or journal or whatever and make an excuse to use this phrase in your entry. Maybe you can even write down in your diary, or dear diary, today I had a fight with my girlfriend or my boyfriend. I told him or her that they took me for granted. Or like maybe in a blog, I am very grateful for what I have in my life right now. I should not take it for granted. So yes, simple stuff like this, it's very easy. You can simply use your phone or even your notebook if you have it with you. What matters is that the words and phrases that you're practicing are actually relevant to you. Words that you can see yourself say out loud to yourself. So the next level is to actually record yourself saying these words or phrases out loud. So when you record yourself speaking, you don't necessarily have to share it on YouTube or on to other people. It's just simply for you to speak to the camera and kind of like practice your speaking skills by yourself. But the bonus of that is that you can actually look back and how you speak to yourself and then give yourself feedback. I wonder if that's right. So basically recording yourself is more or less like writing your own blog, writing your own journal, but now you can actually hear yourself speak. So these are just some small tips that you can do from today to actually transfer some of your passive vocabulary to your active vocabulary. So that is it for this week's video. I hope you guys learned something new. If you like it, if you learned something new from this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up for the YouTube algorithm. And as usual, I will see you next week in another video. And until then, good luck and bye-bye.